And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for Deborah Kobylt Live and also our Sarasota podcast. And we are thrilled to welcome Heather Hackett. She is the founder of an app called Local Relief. And let me tell you, um, local relief is critical when you're in the middle of a crisis, right? Whether it's down where you are, Heather, in Sarasota. We had some sizable hurricanes last year between Debbie and Milton and Helene. Was critical. And I have a home in Sarasota. I grew up in Sarasota. And sometimes when something hits, your electricity's out, poles are down, can't get through, you don't know what to do. So you developed an app. And I think this is really important for people to know about. When there's a crisis, they can go to the app. And by the way, you also want to expand this into California and other places where we've had multiple
Yeah.
disasters, recent fires and whatnot. So let's talk about Local Relief app. And thank you so much for being here.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you, Deborah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell us about the app.
I got goosebumps when you said it's critical, because I completely agree with you. And the app really stemmed from one, it stemmed from an idea, but more really, I had the idea during Hurricane Irma. That was my first hurricane, and I couldn't believe how unorganized it was. I couldn't believe the chaos, the lack of consistent communication, just the fact that there wasn't a hub of everything together. And really, I did big sporting event management before that, and thought we could do better. You know, there had to be a better way. So
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, even little things. For example, we were in Sarasota, I believe, for Milton. For a day. We have just arrived thinking, I grew up in Sarasota, I could handle this. But it was bigger than anybody thought it was going to be. And the eye of the storm is actually coming right over where we live. So stupidly, the day before, we went to Trader Joe's and got a bunch of frozen food. That's something you never do because you're probably not going to have electricity. So it's little things like that, like where should you go and shelter? Should you shelter at home if you're in a warning zone? What kind of food should you have? What services are there if a tree fell on your house, right? So tell me about who you partner with the app, should people need services.
yeah, absolutely. And we really partner with everybody. You know, the whole point is to have all those services and all those organizations together. So like you said, if a tree falls, if you have damage, people, especially, you know, Florida, we may be able to prepare, but we're never prepared to recover. And it's such a big difference where you think, just like you did, you got food. Okay, you got food, but you really don't expect to, you know, lose power or, you know, even worse, you know, have water come in your home or something along those lines. So when that happens, if something does happen to your roof and, you know, you have water inside or you have, you know, a tree fall on your house or your car or whatever, then people don't know what to do. You know, so my whole goal was to put all the organizations that are providing assistance, whether it's federal, whether it's state, whether it's local, whether it's nonprofit, all of those organizations. It takes, when they say it takes a village, it takes a village, you know. So my whole goal is to put all those services that we need, you know, that village together.
Housing is on there as well, like where to go and shelter in place, right? Where to get food if you have no food, you know, government organizations as well. Like, how do you organize all that? Do you have a big team or is it you?
I have a little team. We're small but mighty, and we keep expanding. And even there, you know, I could talk about the expansion part, but really, as far as the structure of it, I point to organizations and I point to sites that have changing information. So for example, like with the shelters, so for Florida alone, Florida Division of Emergency Management and Red Cross both have sites that show the shelter locations. So I'm going to point to both of those, you know, so I'm going to say, hey, this is your site for this, and say where to go. I'm going to point to your county website. I'm going to point to the app to download for emergencies. I'm going to point to, you know, again, your federal, your state, your all of the information that you could possibly need. I'm going to, you know, point to those resources for you. My whole goal is to funnel and then, you know, show you where to go.
How did you think of this? What's your background? Like, how did you even think to do this?
Yeah, my background, I've always been an entrepreneur, but for this one in particular, I use my sporting event management background. That's what I was doing then. And if there's one thing I learned from the He really is the best in the business. His name is John Korf, and I was doing an event with him. And the one thing I learned from him that really stuck with me during storms was the fact that, people, they tend to get anxious, and they tend to, build that anxiety from typically lack of communication. So, nobody likes to go to an event and go, where do I go? Where do I go? Where that's overeducate, overinform. So I kind of use the overeducate, overinform for the example of people in a gas station line, where you see people for miles, at the gas station pump, right off the highway. Well, typically, if you go in a couple miles or go to the smaller gas stations that are away from the highway, you may find gas and you won't find the lines, but it's lack of communication. People don't know. They see the lines, so they jump in them. So to me, knowing that part, to me, it was a lack of communication. So I wanted to figure out a way to alleviate that.
That's very smart thinking, because I was one of those people who left a little too late, right, for Milton. The gas line was long. I was trying to go up to 75 just to, toward Jacksonville and beyond. Yeah. And there was no gas. They were out of everything. And I kind of didn't know what to do. But having grown up down there, I know there's lots of little towns in the middle of nowhere. But it was a little sketchy, right? And I could have used an app that said, hey, you can get your gas here. But I was on, tiny little 1-lane roads in each direction, just looking for gas, anybody who had gas. And I could have used an app like yours, to help me find something like that. That's a really, really good point. Because sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to get going and get gas. There is no gas. Yeah. There was no food. I mean, I couldn't even get like potato chips. There was nothing, because I think people, once they realized how critically dangerous these hurricanes were, they were a little late to the game, like myself. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, especially too, you typically, you say, oh, not until it's named, or not until everybody has their own not until moment. But usually they tend to hit at about the same time. And then everyone's like, okay, now I really have to go. And you can't.
Yeah. What do you do if there's no internet service though, and you can't get out? Like, what do you do? I guess you just have to find a place to download the app and figure that out.
Yeah, and this is local relief is for before, during, and after, so it's not just during, where if there's an instance where you don't have service, you're not going to have service, but the thing is too, and Florida's really good with putting it, getting that service turned on quickly, so the first thing you're probably going to get access to is the internet, so this is here for the long haul. It's not just, again, like I said, like before and during, it's here for, okay, after, and we do have damage, between long-term recovery groups and all the services and organizations that you need after, we're really here for that part as well. So, so as far as service goes, I mean, we can do what we can do.
Each hurricane, whether it was Debbie, Helene, or Milton, and I'm just talking 2024 here, and just in Sarasota, sort of had a different issue attached to it, right? What were some of the issues that where people were really in sort of dire straits? They couldn't get, they were flooded out 8 feet into their home. I don't even think they expected that. But what were some of the critical issues that people were facing?
Yeah, critical issues. If you look, like Debbie, to me, is the one that really just caught us off guard. Because, it was sideswiped, and, ironically, I was at the State Emergency Operations Center in Tallahassee when it hit, and it was slated to come over there, of which it did, so here I thought I was in the hurricane zone up in Tallahassee. And when I was in Tallahassee, I'm seeing pictures in Sarasota, and I'm showing people there going, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on here? Because it was areas that typically don't flood, and they weren't flooding a little bit. They were a lot, and we got, I think, the most rain during that storm. We got like 18 inches, in a day. And then, there were, some issues and things that happened, there, and, who knows, but at the end of the day, we had a boatload of flooding then. And I think the biggest reason that people really didn't know how to respond to it was because it was so unexpected. They weren't even planning on the storm, to come near us. And it was just the outer bands that just brought in that much water. So I think, to me, like, that one was the most, but then Helene, holy cow. I mean, that brought in it's a whole different set, where there we saw flooding, on the coast and in the, on the Keys. And I mean, we saw monumental flooding there, and then of course, wind from Milton.
Yeah.
It was just one after another. I mean, we just kept getting nailed,
I have
so
so many friends who were hit hard from Helene and Milton in particular, a few of them from Debbie, because that was a little further east. I tend to live a little further west. So a lot of my people that I know are west. And I mean, their homes just literally washed right out into the sea. It was
yeah.
shocking. And my one friend said, I had a Zoom meeting. I didn't have shoes. I didn't have sweatpants. I had nothing. Like she went back and the whole place was just gone. So when you have needs like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
when you have nothing left and you've lived your life in this place, not even a picture of grandma, that's traumatizing, right? Do you also set people up with maybe mental health resources as well?
Yeah, we have, I mean, as far as, and that's, I think and again, one more, kind of case in point where you may be ready to prepare, but you're never ready to recover, is that you don't realize the depth of damage that is done afterwards. Where, I mean, I was at the Multi-Agency Resource Center after the disaster, and there was a guy that came in and he had a pair of shorts and he had a pair of rubber boots. And that was it. And I asked him, if he needed a t-shirt. I said, I have some local relief t-shirts in my car. Do you need a t-shirt? He said, yeah. And I said, what size are you? He said, I don't care as long as it covers my nipples.
And, oh my, that's not funny, but what a shame, really. A little comic relief in a disaster time.
Wow. And they were in tears like 10 minutes later, because it's that roller coaster of, it's emotional and people don't realize it, so yes, mental health, yes, I mean, all day long, that's a big component, because there are the emotions where you go through and you're grateful, that you've kind of survived, and then you get mad, and then you're sad, and then I mean, there are just so many emotions all over the place, not to mention the fact that then you have to deal with the stuff from your home and you are so overwhelmed. So stress takes a new meaning.
Also, what government agencies to go through for help. Obviously, your insurance, but there's FEMA. There's so much more, and it can be. I know it can be confusing. Now, I know you're also looking to expand somewhat, down the road to other areas. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, our app you can really use anywhere. So the big thing when we say expansion, like you said, of our team, we like to have the resources before people download it. So as far as right now, if you go to the group page where it's like your Facebook groups, so Local Relief has groups. If you go to those, we have Texas, we have Louisiana, we have groups for, anybody can create their own group right now in any, city, county area. But the big thing that we do like to have, resources in depth too is your state resources. So like right now, of course, we have Florida, we have your immediate needs, we have your family services, we have debris cleanup, we have, oh my gosh, we're adding veteran services, we're adding services all the time. We probably have a dozen different categories, and mental health is on there, disability, special needs, all that stuff. Like they're all listed in different categories. And of course that's for the state, but we're also expanding. So my team has been, since they knew we were coming on here, we've been adding a lot of resources for California. We're still adding them for Texas. We're adding them for all the states surrounding the Gulf first, and North Carolina, of course. So yeah, we're trying to add as many resources and as many areas as we possibly can, especially pre-hurricane season. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Your timing is excellent. Now, this is not your first time in the scope of nonprofit, right? You've done something. I'll have you explain what they are. I Train Your Kids. You also founded Be Me Books. Tell me about both of those.
Yes. So this Local Relief is the first nonprofit, but as far as my businesses go, I Train Your Kids. That was my first. That was fitness and nutrition for kids and families. So I got into that. I had, I didn't learn about nutrition until I was, in 20. I had a weight issue when I was a kid, so I really have a soft spot there. And my whole goal was just teach them young, about confidence and eating healthy. And then Be Me Books really stem from that. The Pretty in Me was my first book. And that's about a girl that wants to go play with her friends, and they say, sorry, you can't play with us. We think you're too fat. And it's a,
Oh,
you know, it
wow.
really is like embracing individuality. And but it also ends with always know the secret that the beauty lies in you, you know? So it really is that confidence builder, you know, for kids. So yeah, I did that. And ironically too, the Chris Driggers, who is my chief technology officer, my CTO, he illustrated my first book for me for free because he wanted to be able to leave it to his daughter. So after
Oh.
that, I've been working with him ever since. He's amazing. He's absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
But there's a real theme to what you do. You want to help other people.
Yes.
Does
Yeah.
that stem from, you said you were, you know, an overweight kid, overweight young person, and just sometimes feeling sort of, you know, deflated, defeated, and sort of like you just don't want other people to feel that way too. You want to be able to give back.
Yeah, I think there is some of that, but I was always that helper. Like even
Mm.
with my mom in the kitchen, I was always that helper. I always wanted to make people smile. I like holding doors for people. I like that's me. If you know me, I'm always, you know, doing something, you know, and that's just me. You know, I'm a true believer of, you know, always be responsible for the energy you bring to a room. And I take that seriously, you know, where I want, you know, if especially in Sarasota, you don't know who you're going to see, and you may be the only person that someone talks to each day, you know, so you want to make that moment count, you know, and you want to make them happy. And that's just me, you know, uh, I love people, you know, I want to help people. And this is local relief is the accumulation of everything I've ever done and any person I've ever been or wanted to be. And I have the capacity now to help people like I've never been able to before.
What's the work that you're currently also doing? You said in the world of sports. Tell us about that.
I did big sporting event management. I do not anymore.
Mm.
So as far as anything goes that was pre-local relief, that is not. I was into fitness before, and now I do. I'm kind of on a Pilates love. I go to Club Pilates, and I absolutely love them. So that's my fitness right now is just Pilates.
Mm. But I love how, you know, coming from a space where you didn't feel comfortable with your body,
Yeah,
then you ended up in the world of sports, which is really
yeah,
kind of cool,
yeah,
right? I think that's
yeah.
really, I think the world of sports is always changing and exciting. But the fact that you got
Yeah.
into that space is
I had
wonderful.
to. It
Oh,
was when so at 20 years old I had a weight issue and I figured, okay, you know, either I'm gonna go one direction and I'm just gonna get bigger, or you know, I'm gonna go to the gym and I wanted to do it the right way. And this was back in the day of Taibo. I started with like Billy Blanks and I
oh,
exercised in my house before I was even comfortable enough to go to the gym. And I had to, and that's again why I started working with kids in confidence is because I had to build mine from the ground up. I had to build it. I had to build it piece by piece, brick by brick,
yeah.
you know, little compliment by little. I think I could do this, you know, and it was an effort and it was, you know, a day at a time, you know, so
I have a funny Billy Blank story.
yes.
When he was starting out, it was actually out here in Los Angeles, and he had a pretty sizable studio in, I think, Sherman Oaks. And I went there, and I was, you know, working out, thinking I was really good, really cool, in shape.
Yeah.
And we had to sign a waiver because that day he was actually filming for a video. I'm like, oh yeah, great. So I'm sitting here doing my moves and whatever, and he goes, now this young lady, he goes, don't do it like her. I'm thinking, oh man, you know, like everything he did it in jest. He was lovely, right? But in other
Yeah.
words, you know, then he picked up my arm and he goes, you do it this way, and her leg, now you got to extend it this way.
Ah,
And I thought, oh man, am I a loser? You know what I mean? And
that's
I
so funny.
don't know if it ever ended up on any of his videos. I hope not. I
Yeah.
signed that waiver away, so whatever. But I was the
Yeah.
don't do this girl, you
Oh,
know.
that's
So
funny.
it was really funny. I will tell you, he was such a lovely man, really very
Aw.
caring for the people in that room, you know. But how, you know how it is when you're just like pointed out in an
Yeah.
exercise class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now, no matter where I go, what I do, it could be spinning or anything. I'm in the
Yeah.
back, and if they even go near me, I'm like, go away. I can't
Yeah.
deal with it. I
Yeah.
don't like that. But he was really lovely, and his
Uh,
classes were pretty terrific.
I
Um,
bet.
yeah, no, he was
Yeah, I
great.
bet.
He was really great. So what's next for you? What are you doing next? Oh, wait, before I ask you
Oh,
that,
what?
congratulations because you won or were awarded the 2024, I believe, Humanitarian of the Year, right? Who, that's really terrific. Over
It was
in
crazy.
Lakewood Ranch, give a
Yeah,
shout out to,
yeah.
who honored you with that. And the reason being, of course, what you do.
Yeah, Lisa Lawler. So Lisa Lawler, she works with First Citizens Bank, which of course is
Yeah.
now my bank. But yeah, just she reached out after I think it was Debbie, where she said, "Hey, if you need supplies." And I'm like,
Oh,
"Absolutely.
wow.
I'll take whatever you can get." So her and I were working together and I was delivering and I was, and she was helping me point in their direction. And she kind of just paid attention, to what I was doing in the whirlwind and whatever. And and she's such a kind person. And
Yeah.
so the one day she called me and she said, and I could tell she was excited. She said, "I want to tell you something, but I don't want to tell you until I know if," or she's like, "I nominated you for Humanitarian of the Year." And I'm like, "You what?" I said, "You
Oh,
did?" And I was choked up then. I was so shocked, and choked up that she nominated me. And she said, "Yeah," she said, "I even had to get letters from," she said, "I got a letter of recommendation from your husband, from your board president," she said, "and from a mutual friend of ours." And she said it was unanimous. You won. And I started crying. I was standing, I'm like,
oh,
what in the world? I could not believe it. And to me, it was just one of those moments where sometimes you don't really know who's paying attention. And those are the
yeah.
moments where I say, they kind of saw you dancing and they saw you on stage,
Yeah.
sometimes you don't know who's watching, and that was kind of my, oh my gosh, someone's paying
Well,
attention. So
good
it
for
was
you.
really cool. And it was so now my name is on a plaque in the center of Lakewood Ranch, which is crazy. But
Oh,
yeah, it's really
wow.
cool. It's
Next
really
time I'm out
cool.
there, you're going to have to
Yeah.
take me and show me the plaque, and we're going to take a
Yeah, I
picture
would love
together.
that. Yes.
Yeah, I would love
Yeah,
that.
I'd
I
love that.
just got back from there like a day ago. So
Yeah.
I miss it already. I'm trying to figure out when am I heading back there, because I'm trying to make, it's always been my home, and I'm trying to make it now more of my home, more time there.
Yeah.
So I'd love to go back there with you. So tell
Oh,
me what
please.
you're working on next with the upcoming hurricane season.
Yeah.
Um, and anything else that you'd like our audience to know about you, and also how they can reach you and help out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, please. Yes. The big thing, just because we like to have the resources at a time, we just started a volunteer program for high school kids. Down here for Bright Futures, high school kids need 100 hours of volunteer work to graduate. So I thought, why don't we do those virtual? So for kids that need volunteer hours, they can do it from the safety of their home. If they don't have transportation to, or whatever the case is, or if their parents work or they have sports or whatever. So basically we're offering volunteer hours, for kids where they can do research. They can do research for, all these organizations and, the resources for, surrounding storm, in states. I mean, like right now is California and Louisiana and all of that stuff. And then also we want them to have fun with it. So,
Yeah.
if they like doing TikTok videos, if they like doing content, if they want to interview emergency management people, if they want to, whatever the case is, we can use all of that. So we really want to get the kids involved and the community involved in what we're doing, and in, really just, emergency management in general, and just kind of raise awareness.
Yeah, and pass it to the next generation. But
Yeah.
community is everything. I mean,
Yes.
this app is about community, right?
100%.
Without it, yeah, I mean, without
Yeah.
it, it really couldn't exist. So
Yeah.
I really, really applaud you for doing this. When I heard about it, I thought, oh, I
Oh,
have to
thank
get
you.
her on. I really am just so thrilled that you're doing this for our community.
Oh,
Anything
thank you.
else? Anything else you'd like to tell our audience about you, about local relief, or anything else they can do to help?
Yeah, it's really this really is for people. This is,
Yeah.
I say it's like a big blank bulletin board. It's your app, it literally is for, if you anything about disasters, it will always be neighbors helping neighbors. That's what we do. So this platform really gives neighbors a hub and a home to find other people and other neighbors that are in need of either assistance or volunteer hours or, money. So it really is really that collective hub where people couldn't, maybe before they didn't know where to donate, or they didn't know where to volunteer, or they didn't know where to give their supplies that they already had, where now we can catch that information. So now, you're going to be able to help your neighbor more effectively and be able to help your community more effectively. It truly builds community resilience.
Absolutely wonderful. I'm just thrilled I got to talk to you.
Yeah,
And
likewise.
I wore my local relief green today because
Love it.
I love the green on your app. It's just so pretty. And I thought, oh, I got to
Okay.
match her today. And I love your shirt too. So we
Yeah,
kind of,
thank you.
we're in tandem there. So
Yes,
I love that.
yes, perfect.
Please
Thank
look
you.
up Heather Hackett on any social media and the local relief app. If you want to get involved in any way, this is really important, people. Doesn't matter where you are, right?
Yeah,
Because this
yeah,
is expanded out to different communities. And I think it's critical. And it
yeah,
really sort of
yeah,
brings us together as a community at a time when so many people are just don't know where to go and don't feel like they're a part of anything. This is a great
yeah,
way to be involved
yeah,
and help your neighbors and yourself too. This is just
yeah,
terrific. So I
yeah.
applaud you for doing that.
No, thank you. And it does. It showcases the best of humanity. And our
Yeah.
goal is to be like that Nextdoor / Facebook, but with information and resources for disasters. And we can use help, we can use donations, we can use business, sponsorships and partners that want to come along for the ride as well. So we are in need of that. So
Yeah.
that we can use
Okay.
help with.
We'll put that out there on our pages too. I
Thank
think
you.
that's very important. So thank you
Yeah,
for joining
thank
us, Heather. And again, everybody look up the local relief app. Look up Heather Hackett as well. And if you have an idea for our Sarasota podcast, reach out to me. Anything from the arts, because I love the arts down in Sarasota. To me, it's second to none. It's incredible what's happening on our islands out east, Lakewood Ranch, people doing good. That is what's important to me in particular, because I think when we do that, it's good for the community. So any ideas you have, please reach out to me as well. You can find our podcast, Deborah Kobylt Live, and the Sarasota podcast on all audio and video platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and then we put it on an audio podcast. It's on iHeartRadio, anywhere on Spotify, and any place else where you get your audio podcast, you'll find us. So thank you all for joining us. Please spread the word about local relief, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.